How's it, Jordan here? This is the 5th episode of my course where I will show you how to make my game Tanks2023. In this episode, I'll be upgrading from the old input system to the brand new input system. Well, not brand new, it's been in Unity for a while, but yeah, it's a huge improvement to the old input system. So, first I'm going to go Window, Package Manager, and I'm going to go Unity Registry, and I'm going to search Inputs, and let's just wait for it to fetch it, and we have Input System. You're going to click Install, and it's installing all the packages and compiling the scripts, and it is nearly done. And when it's done, we'll set the input system up. It's quite easy and quite nice to use. So it's nearly done, and yes. And let's just continue. Right, it's completely done, and it also shut down this Unity, and it reopened it. So if you press yes, it will also do that. You need to press yes, or at least you should. Next, we'll go over. Also, I'm just going to select all the border walls. Select every single one of them and go create empty parents. I'm going to move it right in the center, actually, the parent, and I'm going to name it border walls. And I'm going to select every single wall inside the border walls parent, and I'm going to move it up back to its correct position. Let's go shift and select everything. Move it up right around there, and let's move it on the x-axis a bit, and let's see. Yeah, I think it's in the correct position now. Right, that's done now, and now we have a bit of cleanup here. I'm also going to create an empty parent for the border walls and name it Environments. That's where we're going to store all our assets in, just to clean it up. And it serves no actual purpose, it's just to clean up our hierarchy. So look, we're cleaner now instead of having thousands of border walls. Okay, let's start with the actual input system. I'm going to go to my tank and go add and search player inputs and player inputs. And make sure it's not player input manager, it's player input. And we're going to go, there are no actions, so we're going to click create actions. And you're going to choose a position. We can just save it in our assets folder. Right, it made this window. Let's just make it a bit smaller. And also I'm going to recommend you click autosave. And now we have this new asset called Tanks2023 YouTube.inputActions. We can check the name, it doesn't really matter. I mean, we can rename it though to inputs. So I guess inputs, that's fine. And we can go to our tank and we can drag in inputs and there. Default scheme, you don't need to worry about that. But now, if we open, we're going to open send messages. So I don't want to send messages. Instead, I'm going to go invoke Unity events, and now we get a new setting called player. And if we open up our input, you may notice this action map called player. This is all the different actions. So we have our move, we have our look, and we have a fire, all these different actions. So if we, what's also, by the way, quite cool is, let's say we want to change our look action. Instead of right stick on the gamepad, we can make it listen and make it whatever key we want, really. And we could just press, let's say I want it, let's go, sorry, it won't actually work, I just forgot, sorry. This is actually on the vector 2, so if we, let's say, did fire, that's a better one. Instead, if we did fire, let's say, you could press S on your keyboard. You can even press a key on your PlayStation controller. In my case, it's PlayStation controller. You might be an Xbox, whatever. It could be any controller. Doesn't matter. It should be able to listen through anything. But it works nicely. It even sets it up for all sorts of different things. I haven't tested on many of these things, only a joystick, as I said, my PlayStation controller and the Mac, of course. But I haven't tested on XR or anything like that. But it does automatically set it up, and it should work if it was connected to some XR. It's quite cool though. We can then close input actions, and we can set up the movement. So let's open my player controller. And I'm going to open up in Visual Studio, by the way. Right, I have Visual Studio open now. So first, I'm going to go make a private variable, and it's going to be a vector3, and we're going to call it local movement. Right, local movement, and then I'm going to make the same thing again. This will be the quaternion and rotation quaternion right there. Next, I'm going to add a, let's just, by the way, we've got to remove this vector3 here and quaternion, otherwise it'll give out errors. Next, I'm going to make a public, sorry, not private, it needs to be public, by the way. Public, move, just go move. And the move function, public void move, and the move function is going to input an input action dot callback context, and we can name it CTX, and we can make it a function, a prop function. So the on move is going to have pretty much what we have in here. So we're just going to let's just copy this part actually. So let's just copy this part. I think that's all we're going to need for now. And we're going to go, instead of equal to input get axis times by rotation speed, which is the old system, we're instead going to go to etx dot read value. And by the way, remember when I said there, each kind of input you have, you can label as a vector3, a vector2 input, so that'd be your stick or your joystick. And you can have a float input, all the different inputs, and you can set it. And I'll show you that when we've done. So if I make this a vector2 input, and because this movement, it's going to use a stick, right? Function.x, and we can then copy all of this for our y, and there. Then we're going to go local movement is equal to transform dot forward times by forward input, and we're going to then go rotation quaternion is equal to quaternion dot Euler, and Euler is essentially a way of converting, because quaternions are same as vector 4s essentially, but rotations, they usually have to input 4 values. But Euler, you can convert to an Euler angle, your vector 3, and it'll convert it to a proper quaternion, generate the W value, which is the fourth value of a quaternion. Right, we can give it the Euler angle, 0f, right? We'd want no side rotations, no pivots, different pivots, only the y-axis, so we can turn, and then 0f. No rotation speed, sorry. This is rotation input, right there. And then we're going to go, we can go here, and we can stop setting local inputs inside here. And we can just set it like this. And that, I believe, is all we need to do. We can then go to Unity. Right, I've gone Unity. And now if we open our events list, we have a player. And we can open our move plus our move. And this is really the beauty of the system. We can add as many functions as you want, you can call. And we added our move function. We can go play, and it should work correctly. Let's test it. It does sort of work, but it gives us a bunch of errors. And I forgot to do this thing. Essentially, you need to go rotation quaternion dot normalize. I think it's in some strange value. It's some weird value, so we need to normalize it. Right, so then we can press play and it should fix all our errors now. So now we can drive around as much as we want and it works nicely. Right, and now we can drive around, and also you can use your joystick, which is really quite cool, which is really the reason why I did this, and also because of the simplicity of it. So if we just hook up the joystick, right, the joystick's hooked up now, and if we drive around, it works perfectly on joystick as well. And what's also quite cool is, let's say I just went to our player controller and I made in a public function. This is just testing, by the way. It won't actually do anything. It will just make a little debug. And we go fire, right? And we can just go debug.log and fire, like that. And if we go back to Unity, we can open our inputs and we can open the fire. So I'm going to delete everything inside the fire. So just go select everything and go command delete. We can open our fire and go add a binding, not positive negative binding, but a binding. And make sure fire is a button, not a value, because we only want you to press it once. And we can make it, let's say, X, the button south or the cross on the PlayStation controller. Add another, and this is going to be, we can not do listen, I don't think it works on the mouse, and it's just going to be left. Let's just add here, go mouse, and there's just left button. Save it, and we do the same thing as we did before. We open player, but instead we do fire, drag in our tanks in the object, player controller, and choose fire. And if we watch for the debugs here, it's in this little corner here. As you see, it says fire now. And there. And also, if we press X, it adds even more fires. Right. That is quite cool. So, this is the end of this episode. By the way, just before I end it totally, you can actually delete your fire. It won't be needed for a while. So you can just delete if you want. I'll keep it, but yeah, you can delete it. But yeah, this is the end of this episode. Next episode, we'll actually be adding the buildings. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I think it's quite useful actually because the whole new input system is so much easier to use and easier to add new inputs. Yeah, it takes a few seconds to change the input. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!